Well, hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and our topic today is what are exogenous ketones and are they healthy? So, I get this question all the time, and we're going to really dive into this topic. What is the ketogenic diet? What is ketosis? What are these things called exogenous ketones, and how would it benefit us to use it? So we're going to go into that in detail in this presentation. And so if you don't know me, my name's Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine, and I really specialize in helping people overcome chronic disorders, help improve their metabolism as well as their blood sugar. And I specialize in a ketogenic lifestyle, and I have a clinic, Exodus Health Center, that is in the Kennesaw, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta area. And this is my beautiful wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua. And so, really, when we look at ketosis, we know that most people in society are chronic sugar burners. And what that means is their body is reliant on one energy system, this ability to break down glucose and utilize it for fuel. And that's because we eat a high carbohydrate, high starch diet, like bread, for example. And when we do that, blood sugar goes up, and then the pancreas secretes insulin. And insulin is a hormone that takes sugar out of the bloodstream, puts it into the cells to use for energy. And so when insulin is elevated, our body's going to use glucose for energy, and we're also going to store fat. We're not going to be able to break down fat. We're going to store fat. So you think about somebody that may want to lose weight. As long as insulin's elevated, we're going to be storing fat. However, on a ketogenic diet, we are on a very low carb diet and a very high fat. So we're making the calories with fat, not with sugar, starch, anything that turns into glucose. And so, with that, our glucose, our blood sugar levels fall and our insulin levels fall. And then, when insulin goes down, the body says, okay, well, we need to break down fat for fuel. So, we get this lipase enzyme that breaks down triglycerides in our body and releases them into the bloodstream. And they go to the liver, and the liver converts them into this molecule called a ketone, which is a water soluble compound that goes through the cell membrane into the mitochondria and is really easily used by the cells for energy. It produces rampant amount of energy and very low amount of metabolic waste. Whereas burning sugar or glucose is very dirty energy. Ketones are very clean energy. So really have the flexibility, the metabolic flexibility to go from burning sugar to burning ketones and back and forth effectively is highly advantageous for us in a number of different ways. When we're able to do that, when we have that metabolic flexibility through following something called a ketogenic diet, which is like a diet and lifestyle designed to help our body produce these ketones. When we do that, we're able to reduce inflammation in the body, improve our ability to burn fat, which is going to help give us better mental clarity and sharpness. Also, if we're trying to lose weight, to lose extra body fat, it's going to help us do that. It's going to give us more energy. I'm not trying to lose weight, but I am in ketosis right now because I love the mental clarity, the sharpness, the energy. Really good for your skin. You notice it just shinier, more clear, reduces your cravings. So if you're craving food a lot, it's a sign you're sugar burning. And when you're in ketosis, you're going to reduce that. You're going to get an increase in the amount of mitochondria. So your cells are going to be able to produce more energy, which is really good for obviously your energy, your brain function, all the different benefits that come with that. It's going to reduce aging, or slow down, I should say, the aging effect in our body, and then significantly reduce our risk of chronic disease, because chronic disease is inflammatory based and it's damage to the mitochondria. And so we know that ketogenic diet obviously reduces inflammation, improves mitochondrial function. So it's going to be really advantageous for us. Now, when we look at ketones, there are three major ones: acetone, acetoacetic acid, beta hydroxybutyric acid. We can measure each one of these when we do urine strips. It's looking at acetoacetic acid. Acetone is we measure through the breath, and then beta hydroxybutyric acid is actually an ester, but it's we classically call it a ketone. It acts like a ketone, and that's really what we're measuring in our bloodstream. And this is what's used most often, right? Basically, the ketone that's used for cellular energy the most, right? The greatest percentage is beta hydroxybutyric acid. And so when we look at ways to increase ketosis, we know that periods of time without food, like fasting, is going to lower insulin, lower blood glucose, and increase ketone production. We know obviously a ketogenic diet, well-formulated ketogenic diet, high in fat, moderate protein, and low carb. So not a high protein diet, very high in fat, somewhere between 60 to 80% of our calories coming from fat. The more active you are, the more protein and carb your body should be able to handle. The less active you are, the more fat and the lower amount of protein and carb you should be doing. High intensity exercise can really help with this, especially if you're exercising in a fasted state. It's going to help your body become more keto adapted and have this metabolic flexibility to use ketones and glucose for fuel. Coffee, believe it or not, caffeine in general can help basically stimulate something called AMP kinase and stimulate ketone production because it, in a sense, stresses the cells a little bit, and it will increase metabolic flexibility if used appropriately. So if you're a poor caffeine metabolizer, you get real jittery after consuming it, I wouldn't recommend it, or at least not in high amounts. However, in small amounts can be really helpful. And for some individuals, they're better caffeine metabolizers, so they can handle a little bit more. MCT oil. So you'll see a lot of this out in our society now. Medium chain triglyceride oil, which comes typically from coconut and palm oil, which does naturally contain MCTs. Breast milk, mother's breast milk contains MCTs. Dairy, full fat dairy contains MCTs, just not a really high percentage. And so this is processed to where it is standardized to have just MCTs. And in particular, you want one that has C8 and C10, okay, not C12, which is lauric acid, because that does not turn into ketones very quickly. But MCTs are a form of boosting up your ketones quickly. It really doesn't take a whole lot of work from your liver to be able to produce ketones from MCT. And then the fastest way to boost ketones is exogenous ketones. So all the other ones are more lifestyle-based. MCT oil would be considered some level of like a ketone we take in from the outside, but the body still has to convert it into a ketone. So there still is a conversion process that takes place in the liver, and it usually takes 45 minutes to an hour. Whereas exogenous ketones will go into your system, and they're already ketones. So you're going to get a very quick rise, typically within 10 to 15 minutes, of ketones in your system. And that can be really advantageous for a number of reasons, and we'll go through that. When you're out there and you're looking at ketone supplements, what you got to look for is ketone salts. So again, we said MCT oil is a form of like a ketone oil, okay? And it can really give you, I guess you could say, just a longer lasting ketone effect. In fact, I recommend if you're going to do exogenous ketones, always do it with the MCT oil powder in it. You should always have that in it because you'll get a prolonged effect, prolonged impact of ketones. Now, what you want to avoid are the raspberry ketones. You'll see these in a lot of stores that are marketing them for weight loss. That's not actually a ketone, okay? That's something else, and it's not going to promote ketosis, okay? So raspberry ketones, not ketones, not real ketones. Ketone esters, this is kind of like something new. It's really hard to get at this point. They're still doing a lot of research on it. And the biggest challenge people have had is, it definitely boosts your ketones. However, it really tastes very poorly. So most people gag when they consume it. And I don't know of any manufacturers at the time of this recording that are actually putting this out, but I believe that will be coming out some point soon. For right now, you're looking at ketone salts for exogenous ketones. And these are basically beta hydroxybutyrate bonded to magnesium, potassium, sodium, calcium, some combination of that, or could just be one of them. So that's what you're looking at. So electrolytes we know are beneficial on a ketogenic diet. So it's good to kind of get that combination when it gets into your system. Basically, it's going to cleave, right? But that helps it kind of make its way through the digestive system, and then it's going to cleave off into the bloodstream. And now you're going to have, free-forming electrolytes that you need, as well as the beta hydroxybutyrate to fuel the cells. So very powerful. And so basically the reason why exogenous ketones can be very beneficial is because, number one, they provide ketones that teach the body, so especially when you're trying to keto adapt in the beginning phases, your body just doesn't really understand how to use ketones because it hasn't been taught. It hasn't had ketones elevated enough to build up the metabolic machinery to use those. So oftentimes for a lot of people, they'll develop symptoms, different side effects of keto and things like the keto flu, where they just feel really hungover and they have a headache, no energy. And basically, exogenous ketones can help bridge that gap, get ketones into the system, start teaching the body very quickly. I mean, within hours on how to use ketones, and at the same time, make somebody who's trying a ketogenic diet for the first time, that's struggling, make them feel a lot better, have a lot more energy, mental clarity, get rid of the headaches, things like that can be really, really effective. They boost energy at any time of day. Like for me, I am very keto adapted. I've been doing this now for 10 years. And so I'm very keto adapted, but I actually like to use exogenous ketones along with some other things, oftentimes before my workout. And I'll work out fully fasted, but getting that extra ketone levels and electrolytes and some other compounds that I'm going to talk about, getting those things in, I notice just better energy for my workout, strength, performance. So they can be really beneficial. Also really good for like a high level performance. If you're a student, you want to do better on a test, for example, it can definitely improve that. If you're doing a presentation, you can definitely get improvement with that. Boost energy at any time of day, right? So again, great for exercise. And it's not a stimulant, so you can take it and still sleep good, right? As opposed to caffeine, which you wouldn't want to take after a certain time of day, like 3 p.m. or so, because it can affect your sleep. Also really good for preventing against hunger and cravings. So if you're fasting, you can use exogenous ketones in a sense like a meal replacement. And also in between meals, if you feel like, gosh, you're constantly craving foods, it can really help bridge that gap, which stresses your body a little bit in a positive way. So when your body's feeling like it needs fuel, but it's not getting the glucose rise, then it increases something called AMPK, which has a lot of positive effects on our body, reduces inflammation, a lot of different benefits, as long as we have some sort of fuel source. If blood sugar drops too low and we can't use ketones, then we're going to have hypoglycemic type reactions. So getting the exogenous ketones in there can really help with reducing cravings and providing good steady fuel source between meals. Now, again, benefits, we're talking a lot about this, can be really helpful for traveling if you're trying to do a ketogenic diet. Really good if you're going to cycle out of ketosis, to keep some ketones in your system by taking some exogenous ketones. So if you're going to have a higher carb meal, it can be really beneficial for keeping some ketones in the system. Can reduce the insulin impact, which can be very beneficial for the body, especially if you're a hyper producer of insulin like myself. So when I consume carbohydrate, my body produces a lot of insulin. It's just kind of the way that my biology is. And so oftentimes I'll develop, hours later, hypoglycemia, because I get this massive rise of insulin, pulls the sugar out and overshoots, and the sugar drops too low. So having ketones in my system will reduce that and allow for just better steady energy production, keeps my game at a high level. Obviously really good for fasting. So if you're trying to do intermittent fasting, especially I like to use it again pre-workout when you're fully fasted. And I like to work out fasted for typically somewhere between 17, 18, sometimes up to 20 hours fasted as when I prefer working out. And taking a little bit of this beforehand can really give you that extra performance boost. So really good. Also good for brain. So ketones, getting those in your system and teaching your body especially how to use them can really improve your mental performance as well. So how do we use things like this? Well, fat loss, obviously, is going to teach the body again how to use fat for fuel. So the more we have ketones elevated. Now, if we're doing this all the time with high insulin, like we're just eating a standard American diet or a high carb diet and using exogenous ketones, we're not going to get the benefit. So we definitely want to do it with a low carb, high fat approach. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have carbs from time to time. You can definitely do some cycling, especially if you're doing exogenous ketones, some carb cycling, but you definitely want, extended periods, like multiple days, if not like a full week or multiple weeks, where you are very low carb to get the best benefits of ketosis, because that will really lower insulin. When your body's got low insulin, it's going to tend to use ketones a lot more effectively for a fuel source. So just remember that. And also it's going to be able to break down your own body fat and use that for an energy source. As long as insulin's low, your body will be breaking down your stored body fat. So that's key. Again, great for physical performance, mental function, can be really helpful for longevity, reducing your risk of chronic disease. So a lot of great benefits to doing that. Now, if we're looking for ketones, what we've got to look for is, the right type. And what I recommend is exogenous ketones should always be in company with an MCT oil powder. If you just take straight exogenous ketones without MCT oil powder, then what ends up happening is you get a immediate rise of ketones, but within an hour it drops. If you keep the MCT oil, you're going to have a rise that will last you for typically several hours. Okay. Also, I'm a fan of doing adaptogens with it. Adaptogens are basically herbs or mushrooms that have certain compounds in them, terpenes and polysaccharides, that basically have adaptogenic qualities, meaning that they help balance our HPA axis, our stress response system, our brain to adrenal system that tells us run, fight, or flight. And so by balancing that, we tend to have a really steady stress response, which gives us energy when we're fatigued and improves our performance when we're trying to exercise or do something more strenuous or have some sort of major mental activity, but also doesn't overshoot. So we don't end up with anxiety. Like oftentimes a stimulant like caffeine can give us anxiety. It can make us feel super wired and not be able to sleep well. Adaptogens will help calm and balance if we are wired. So if we are high on caffeine or stress or whatever it is, they're going to help balance us and bring us back to middle ground. And so I'm a huge fan of adding those in with the exogenous ketones, with the MCT, and some other good compounds would be things like amino acids, branched chain amino acids, which help preserve lean body mass, which helps with fasting as well as performance, mental as well as physical energy performance. And I see so many people with issues with leaky gut and poor protein digestion. And so having amino acids, taking in branched chain amino acids can be so powerful for improving neurotransmitter function, for improving lean body tissue, bone tissue, muscle, all of that kind of stuff, and also stimulating fat burning as well. So really powerful there. And so I created a product called Keto Edge that actually has all of these things. It's basically a combination of exogenous ketones, and not as high as some brands that are out there. They're really high in exogenous ketones. And I wanted a more moderate level of exogenous ketones because ultimately I don't want to really just spike ketones. I want to keep a steady supply of ketones. So your body's always kind of got these things present and is aware of them and is utilizing them without just these massive spikes. So this is a little bit lower form, about 7 grams, as opposed to what many brands are doing, which is like 11.7 grams. Also, we added in 2 grams of branched chain amino acids, as well as 2 grams of 6 different adaptogens. Cordyceps, which is renowned for physical performance and energy, one of the best things for improving energy. You've got reishi mushroom, which is great for the immune system and also really good for reducing anxiety and helping improve sleep. It also has turkey tail mushroom, really good for balancing the immune system and preventing against things like autoimmunity, chronic inflammation, and even cancer cell development. It's got turkey tail mush. I think I mentioned turkey tail. It's got lion's mane, which is really good for brain function, nerve regeneration. It has maitake, which is really good for immune function, and it's got king trumpet, which is great for circulation. So we've got 6 different adaptogenic mushrooms, really powerful compounds. Got the MCTs in there, and also it's got sunflower lecithin. And lecithin is a compound that's an emulsifier that actually helps with bile flow. So I see a lot of people on the keto trying to do keto, but they have really poor bile flow and they end up not digesting their fats well. They don't feel as good when they're having high fat meals. So I wanted to add a compound that would really help with bile flow. And also lecithin is also very good for brain because it's got phospholipids that help basically provide the foundation for brain cells. So really good. This is a fully gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan kosher product that has no artificial flavors, no animal products, no preservatives. It's flavored. It's a blue raspberry flavor. It's flavored with stevia and monk fruit, so the best flavoring agents for obviously for anybody who's pursuing ketosis. Doesn't have the sugar alcohols, which oftentimes cause the gas and the bloating that so many people have problems with. And also on top of that, this also has those electrolytes like we discussed. And other benefits of Keto Edge, again, it's not a multi-level marketing company, and the leader in the exogenous ketone space is multi-level marketing. And so obviously there's a whole, chain of events you've got to do in order to even order. And the price is really super marked up. Also, most of the products out there, they're pricing their product for like 15 to 20 servings. And I don't know about you, but when I purchase something, I'm thinking like, hey, I want something that's like a month's supply. If I were to use this every day, I'd want a month's supply. So we did 30 servings in this. And, the price is equivalent to what's happening out there. People are making for 15 to 20 servings, which is great. And also on top of that, just to understand how to use this product, I will typically have people do this. For example, in the morning when they wake up is a great time to do it early in the day. And I recommend watering it down. It's very sweet. I recommend really watering it down, putting in something like 8 to 16 ounces of water. And you'll notice that I think you'll like the flavor better. And it also helps encourage good hydration by drinking it with water. And a lot of times people have high blood sugar in the morning due to the cortisol dawn awakening response. And this will help to dampen that, help your body respond better. And be able to basically be more keto adapted throughout the day. Obviously, doing it like before a workout or doing it before a big mental performance or activity can also be fantastic. So lots of different ways that you can use it. Another thing to do is like, especially if you're having blood sugar imbalances that are keeping you up at night, you're waking up around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock a.m. You can also do some of this at night before you go to bed to help support blood sugar stability and keto adaptation for really good sleep. So any one of those things can be very beneficial for how you want to use that product. And if you check out the article on below this video, if you're watching this on YouTube, then you will see that I actually have a special deal, a special offer right at the very bottom of that article. So check that out. And, if this is something that you're interested in, I hope that you're able to go ahead and get it. And if you do, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how good your body responds to these. I've been using this now for about 6 months and seeing really good results. And I was very skeptical of exogenous ketones when I first got started. And so I wanted to make sure it was working for me. And I found that this product really does. And just really excited about it. So anyways, check that out. And hopefully you guys got a lot of value out of today's presentation. You can also check out more information on my website, drjockers.com. And I'll see you guys on a future online presentation. Bless you.